PRSay. This is the Houston PRSay chapter podcast. We have our very own podcast here in Houston for our PRSay members. This is a chance for us to connect, get to know each other, and learn a little bit about all the different spaces that we're in so that when we do connect in person, we've got something to talk about. So this is a really good way for you to get to know your members and tap into your network here in the Houston chapter of PRSay. I'm your host, Veronica Sofer. I have a fantastic PR firm that I am launching here in the Houston area, and I love to connect with our members, and this is a great way for me to get to know folks one-on-one. So I have the privilege of introducing members to you. Now, if you are listening on the podcast, make sure you hit subscribe. We don't want you to miss any episodes. And if you are watching on the PRSay Houston chapter YouTube channel or Facebook page, connect with us, drop some comments, and my guest and I will connect with you. So let's go ahead and bring on our next amazing member to introduce. We have Angelique Myers Evans joining us. Hello, hello.
Hi, Veronica.
I'm so excited that we are connecting now. We've had a chance to meet lots of folks in person now that we're kind of back from COVID, but I haven't had a chance to have you on the podcast, so I'm really excited.
I am excited to be here. You are just doing it big on these podcasts. You are just killing it. Keep it up.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, let's talk a little bit about your journey and your engagement with PRSay. I know you've been in a lot of different spaces, but you are communications and PR pro to the max. So tell us about your journey.
You're so kind. Thank you so much. I definitely have what I consider a long connection with PRSay, and it actually stems way back from 2004. I was first introduced to this organization by winning a multicultural scholarship back in 2004, my senior year in college at Mary Hardin Baylor. They actually provided me with my first trip to New York to accept the award scholarship with a whole bunch of other, promising PR practitioners that were graduates, soon to be graduates. And ever since then, I've always been connected to the organization, starting with PRSay and as a student. And then, of course, as a professional, every kind of market that I've been in, I've always made sure to plug into the PRSay kind of network. I started in radio back in the day in 2004. I started the midday show on an urban radio station in the Waco Temple Killeen market, and then went over to the competition and did that for several years. And then went on a national tour with the National Association of Broadcasters that brought me to the television spectrum, being a spokesperson on television, visiting what was it, maybe 40 out of the 50 states.
Oh, wow.
In the US, just going from market to market and working with the firm out of New York. That was really great experience and a lot of awesome exposure. After that, I came back to Texas. I just knew after visiting all these states, I knew I wanted to come back to Texas. There's just no place like it. And then that's when I began working for the military as a public affairs professional. And from there on, I just kind of ventured into the public sector, working for public sector agencies from the federal level to the local level, and even went to graduate school at Texas State University, achieving an MPA, a Master's in Public Administration, and actually had an awesome experience there where I still continue to be connected to my alumni association there.
Mm-hmm. Which is really important. And I've seen, I follow you on LinkedIn and we're connected there. So I see you leveraging these networks and in all the different spaces that you've been in, there's still a common thread of service and public service. So tell me a little bit about how all that connects, whether it's PRSay or your alumni association. I know you also volunteer a lot in the space that you're in. Tell me about how that works for you.
It's interesting that you mentioned that with volunteering. I remember as a student in high school, that's probably where I spent most of my time, is volunteering. And that is basically just kind of been at the forefront of everything, going from volunteering to service or industries and public service. I'm a military brat. My dad was in the Army, and it just goes through and through. I think leveraging a network for anybody in PR is probably it should be a person's priority, really. We have to pride ourselves on connecting people and being a connector, connecting to resources, and really, when it comes down to it, getting the job done. So I definitely try to prioritize making sure that I have authentic connections with people, not necessarily just knowing people, but making sure that when we are able to connect and have experiences together, that they're memorable, that I keep in touch. That's very important, not necessarily reaching out to people only when you need something or need a favor, just to maintain those relationships in whatever space they may be. And I think it's extremely important that we not only expand our networks in our field, but outside of our field, right? Especially when it comes to, something that I'm probably not ever connected with is athletics. Like, I mean, you're just not going to see me, at a basketball game or, doing Pilates or I'm not a fitness person, but, it's very important for me if I'm needing something in that space or need information or a subject matter expert or something, that I have someone that I've interacted with or someone that can at least connect me to that person in that space. So I'm not, I don't know everything about every topic. And so I think that's one of the reasons why having a flexible, diverse network is very important. And that's why I try to leverage that, not just on LinkedIn, but also, in person as well.
Yeah. And I think that's so important. And for not only people looking to support their brand or their organization, but also the things that they value. A lot of us are connected to our alumni associations, or maybe, I used to be really involved with Girl Scouts of America when my girls were little, and we always needed experts and we always needed opportunities to send the girls to serve. And honestly, I would reach out to my communication friends first and foremost, because that's where I knew people and I knew they can at least connect me to someone in the space. So I think that's really important. So tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing now and some of the highlights that you've got going on.
Well, sure. Of course, the work that I'm doing now is, again, still in the public sector. I'm working for Harris County here in the Houston area, and I love being here. Love my boss, and just this area is just so diverse and has a lot of resources and a lot to offer. And of course, my reach expands further, than Houston. So I make sure that my impact and my engagement expands outside of Houston. But here in Houston, I'm very excited to obviously put and dedicate my time into PRSay. Also here helping my husband and what he does. He's also in kind of the law enforcement field and supporting him. But beyond that, it's just really helping our public sector causes and also law enforcement here locally. There's a lot of people that are in and out of our industry that, look at it and they think that it's one thing and they get into it and it's something completely different. I think it's important for them to have, whether it be a mentor or just someone to reach out to or someone to guide them through that space. And I'm happy to do that. I might make sure that anytime there's turnover, which there's a lot of turnover in our industry because it's a hard job, getting a PIO, worrying about law enforcement things, safety things, a lot of extensive crisis communications day in and day out can be a lot on a person. So there is a lot of turnover. So I try to pride myself on keeping up to date on who's with what agency and just helping them through the process as much as I can. Again, I have, a network that's driven throughout Dallas and Houston, all the major markets, and try to make sure that everyone remains connected, whether it be through our professional organizations like IACP, also like PRSay. Some of them are a little more specialized than others, but just making sure that I give back, because at the end of the day, I feel like I've gotten so much over the years, so much experience that for the greater cause, for the industry, right? Just to make sure that everyone is as strategic and as professional as things can be. And that really kind of pivoted me into the APR.
Yeah. So how'd that go for you, the APR process?
The APR process was great. I know everybody has their own, experiences because not everyone would describe it as great.
Right.
But for me, I actually signed up for it on a whim, and it was right before the pandemic started. We had gotten back from a conference. I think it was near the Austin area. And I had signed up. I had all this inspiration and motivation. Right. I'm like, I'm going to do it, and it was great. And I did it. And then the pandemic hit and I'm like, oh my gosh, surely they're going to give me more time.
Yeah.
But they didn't. But it was great because, at the time of the pandemic, we didn't know what was going on. Right. we didn't know, there were so many unknowns, but one thing that I did know was that I needed to complete this. I knew that it was going to be a process that took my initiative and my get up and go. There wasn't going to be anybody encouraging me. It was going to just be me through that process. And so, what I do, I tapped into the PRSay, network, and reached out to a lady that I had met at a meeting that had received her APR, and just kind of picked her brain. And she was great and supportive, and just kind of a virtual coach that helped me through it and was very encouraging. I rented books, I read them, I listened to them, and I just stayed diligent through the whole process. I changed jobs through the process.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I changed jobs through the process. It definitely wasn't a smooth thing, but it was something that, for me was definitely a refresher. But being someone that, has gone through graduate school, has done the extensive research, I understand theories and all those things. Doing the APR process gives you kind of refresher on things that you may not have had to utilize through your professional career, things that you may have forgotten. There really is a small segment of crisis communications in there. So, I was able to brush up on some of the other aspects of APR, and really to hone in on one of the projects that I had worked in on. It gave me opportunity to look at my current position and really to put strategy in it. Really see how I fit into the communications team and how it affects the big picture. So it was great. It was great. I'm so happy and proud that I was able to do it. I'm able to now, again, impress mentorship and guidance to others that may be interested in it, and just to keep up on those skills, because that's another thing. Once you get the APR, you have a responsibility to maintain your skills.
You absolutely do.
And stay up to date. So I'm very proud to have done that. And I hope to continue to bring others through that process. And of course, I'm open to doing that if anyone's interested.
Well, you are a fantastic mentor, and I would definitely put a plug in. If anyone is considering the APR, whatever you've heard, everyone's journey is a little bit different. I've heard people do it during pregnancies. I've heard people do it during layoffs. I've heard all different kinds of scenarios, but having a mentor is probably key, and I know you are a fantastic one. So I encourage any members who are considering it to reach out to Angelique. Angelique, now that we're wrapping up, how do you want folks to connect with you? But what's the best way for our members to reach you and get to know you a little bit better?
I would say probably the most engaging platform I'm using now professionally is probably going to be LinkedIn. I find some of the most interesting articles and just meet some amazing people on there. There's also training opportunities. So I encourage everyone, if you're not engaged on LinkedIn, you have the page, but you don't use it, go ahead and update it and get connected to your network. And look me up on there.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Angelique. It was great to visit again, and I appreciate all the insight you gave our listeners and our viewers.
Thank you, Veronica. I appreciate your time and being here with you.
Awesome. All right, guys, that was Angelique. Make sure you connect with her. Her contact information will be in the show notes. It's so important as members that we stay connected and we tap into the resources that this fantastic chapter has available. So make sure that you follow Angelique on LinkedIn. If you haven't followed me on LinkedIn, you can also find me there as well. We're going to wrap up this episode. If you are listening to the podcast, make sure you hit subscribe. And if you are watching on Facebook or YouTube, be sure to send us comments, and Angelique and I will go back and connect with you guys. Have a great